When Oliver asked me to pretend to be his fiancée for Thanksgiving dinner, I thought it would be simple. One meal, one small lie, and I'd help my best friend avoid his family's relentless matchmaking. I never imagined that fake diamond ring would lead to real feelings neither of us could ignore. If you love heartfelt stories about unexpected romance, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss one. The coffee shop on Maple Street was unusually quiet that October morning, the kind of calm that settles over a neighborhood just before the autumn rush begins. I sat across from Oliver, watching him stir his cappuccino with the same spoon for the third time, a nervous habit I'd noticed during our 2 years of friendship. He hadn't touched the foam, hadn't taken a sip, and his blue eyes kept darting from the table to my face and back again. "Just ask me whatever it is," I finally said, wrapping my hands around my own mug. "You're making me nervous, and I haven't even heard the question yet." Oliver set down his spoon and took a deep breath. "I need you to be my fiancé for Thanksgiving." I blinked. "Your what?" "My fake fiancé. Just for the holiday weekend." The words tumbled out faster now. "My parents are hosting the entire family this year, and my mom has been calling every week about how worried she is that I'm still single at 32. She's invited 3 different sons of her friends to dinner. Jake, 3. She's literally planning to parade eligible bachelors in front of me like it's some kind of romantic game show." I couldn't help but laugh. Though I tried to hide it behind my coffee mug, Oliver shot me a look that was half pleading, half exasperated. "I'm sorry," I said, composing myself. "But you have to admit that's kind of funny. It's not funny when you're living it. Last month she sent me a link to a matchmaking service. A professional matchmaking service, Jake. The kind that costs thousands of dollars." He ran his hand through his sandy brown hair, leaving it adorably disheveled. "I just need one weekend where everyone thinks I'm settled and happy, so they'll stop worrying about my love life and let me breathe." I studied my best friend across the table. We'd met at a community theater production where we were both building sets, bonding over power tools and terrible jokes. Since then, we'd fallen into an easy friendship built on movie marathons, long walks through the city, and the kind of comfortable silence that only comes with genuine connection. I knew about his complicated relationship with his family's expectations. I'd heard countless stories about his mother's well-meaning interference and his father's traditional views on settling down. "Why me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Because you're the only person I trust enough to pull this off. Because you already know my family from that summer barbecue. Because you're kind and funny and my parents already like you." He paused, his voice softening. "And because you're the only person who won't judge me for being desperate enough to suggest this ridiculous plan." There was something vulnerable in his expression, a openness that made my chest tighten. I'd never been good at saying no to people I cared about, especially when they looked at me like I was their last hope. "One weekend," I confirmed. "Just Thanksgiving. Thursday through Sunday. We'll drive up to their place in Vermont on Wednesday night, pretend to be engaged for 4 days, and then come home with everyone believing we're blissfully happy. After a few months, we'll tell them we realized we wanted different things and ended it amicably. No drama, no broken hearts, just a clean break." I thought about my own plans for the holiday, which consisted of heating up a frozen turkey dinner and watching football alone in my apartment. My parents had retired to Arizona the previous year, and while we video called regularly, the distance meant fewer in-person holidays. The prospect of spending Thanksgiving in a beautiful Vermont house with home-cooked food and family warmth was admittedly appealing, even if it came with a side of romantic deception. I heard myself say, "I'll do it." The relief that washed over Oliver's face was immediate and genuine. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand, squeezing it with both of his. "Thank you. Seriously, Jake, thank you. I owe you everything." "You owe me a very detailed backstory," I corrected, grinning despite my growing nervousness about what I'd just agreed to. "If we're going to convince your family we're engaged, we need to get our story straight. Over the next 2 hours, we constructed our fictional romance with the care of screenwriters plotting a summer blockbuster. We decided we'd been secretly dating for 8 months, keeping it quiet because we wanted to be sure before telling anyone. Oliver had proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod, getting down on one knee on the beach at sunset. We'd picked out a simple silver band from a vintage shop downtown, which Oliver insisted on paying for despite my protests. "It's the least I can do," he said, sliding the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, which felt like either a good omen or a dangerous coincidence. Besides, we need it to look believable. The metal was cool against my skin, surprisingly comfortable. I twisted it absently, watching the way it caught the light. Something about wearing Oliver's ring made my stomach flutter in a way I didn't want to examine too closely. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving passed in a blur of preparation. Oliver coached me on family dynamics, creating elaborate profiles of his relatives like we were studying for a test. There was his mother, Patricia, who expressed love through elaborate meals and persistent worry. His father, Richard, was a retired high school principal who valued tradition and asked probing questions. His younger sister, Emma, was a teacher in Boston with a sharp wit and an ability to spot lies from a mile away. "Emma's going to be the hard one," Oliver warned during one of our study sessions at my apartment. "She knows me too well. We'll have to be convincing. How convincing are we talking?" I asked, trying to sound casual while my heart picked up. Speed. Comfortable with each other. Natural. Like we've been together long enough that we don't have to think about it anymore. He demonstrated by casually draping his arm across my shoulders as we sat on my couch. Like this. Easy and natural, except it didn't feel entirely natural. It felt electric, charged with a tension I'd never noticed in our friendship before. I told myself I was just nervous about the deception, not about the way Oliver's proximity made my skin warm and my thoughts scatter. We practiced over dinners and during walks through the city as the leaves turned gold and crimson around us. Oliver would take my hand crossing the street, and I'd lean into him while we waited in line for coffee. Small gestures, innocent touches, building muscle memory for our upcoming performance. With each casual contact, something shifted between us, subtle as the changing season, but just as inevitable. The night before we left for Vermont, Oliver came over to my place for a final rehearsal. We sat on my worn leather couch, surrounded by the comfortable clutter of my life. Books and magazines scattered on the coffee table, the faint scent of the vanilla candle I'd burned that morning still lingering in the air. "I think we're as ready as we're going to be," I said, reviewing our story one last time. 8 months of dating, Cape Cod proposal, planning a small ceremony next fall. "I think we've got it covered." Oliver nodded, but he looked distracted, his fingers drumming against his knee. "Can I ask you something? And will you promise to be honest?" "Of course. Do you think this is crazy?" "Be real with me. Is this the most ridiculous thing you've ever agreed to do?" I considered the question carefully. "It's definitely in the top 5. But I understand why you're doing it. And I want to help. That's what friends do, right? They show up for each other. Even when the request is a little unconventional. Right. Friends." Oliver smiled, but something flickered across his face too quickly for me to read. "I'm lucky to have you, Jake. I hope you know that." "The feeling's mutual," I said, and meant it more than he probably realized. We left for Vermont the next afternoon. Oliver's sedan packed with our luggage and the pies his mother had requested we bring from a specific bakery in the city. The drive took us through increasingly rural landscapes, cities giving way to small towns, then to winding roads through forests ablaze with autumn color. We talked and laughed like we always did, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation now, a awareness that we were approaching the point of no return. The Hastings family home sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, a beautiful colonial-style house with white siding and black shutters, smoke curling from the chimney into the twilight sky. Warm light glowed from every window, and I could see silhouettes moving inside. The shape of family and home and belonging. "Last chance to back out," Oliver said, but his hand found mine, and I could feel the slight tremor in his fingers. "Not a chance," I said, squeezing back. "We've got this." Patricia Hastings opened the door before we'd even climbed the porch steps, pulling Oliver into a fierce hug and then turning to me with the same warmth. She was a petite woman with graying blonde hair and her son's kind eyes, wearing an apron dusted with flour. "Jake, sweetheart, come here," she said, embracing me like I was already family. "I'm so happy you could join us. And congratulations. When Oliver called to tell us the news, I just cried and cried, didn't I, Richard?" Oliver's father appeared behind her, tall and distinguished with silver hair and a firm handshake. "Welcome, Jake. Good to see you again. Come in, both of you. Dinner's almost ready." The house smelled incredible, a mixture of roasting turkey, fresh bread, and cinnamon. We were ushered into the warmth, our coats taken, drinks pressed into our hands. Emma arrived moments later with her husband, Michael, and their 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, who immediately attached herself to Oliver's leg with a delighted squeal. "Uncle Ollie, Mom said you're getting married." Oliver scooped her up, grinning. "That's right, Sophie Bug. What do you think about that?" "I think it's good because Jake is nice and he brought me a cookie last time he was here," Sophie announced with the serious logic of childhood. "Can I be the flower girl?" "Absolutely," I said, earning a brilliant smile from the little girl and an approving nod from Emma. That first evening set the tone for the entire weekend. We fell into our roles with surprising ease, aided by the fact that our friendship provided a solid foundation. Oliver's hand found the small of my back when we moved through rooms together. I poured his coffee the way he liked it without thinking. We shared inside jokes and finished each other's sentences, all the intimate shorthand of a real couple built on the skeleton of our genuine affection. But there were moments that felt like more than acting. When we said goodnight at the top of the stairs, Oliver pulled me close for a hug that lasted a beat too long, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered, "You're doing amazing. Thank you." I lay awake in the guest room that night, staring at the ceiling and trying to sort through the tangle of feelings in my chest. This was supposed to be simple. Help my friend, enjoy a nice Thanksgiving, go home. Instead, I found myself hyper-aware of Oliver's presence in the house, sleeping just down the hall. The ring on my finger felt heavier than it should, weighted with meanings I hadn't anticipated. Thanksgiving Day arrived with the smell of coffee and Patricia's famous cinnamon rolls. The house filled with extended family throughout the morning, aunts and uncles and cousins, a warm chaos of conversation and laughter. Oliver stayed close to me, introducing me to everyone, his hand frequently finding mine or resting on my shoulder. Each touch sent small shocks through my system, my body responding in ways my mind didn't want to acknowledge. During dinner preparation, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Emma, chopping vegetables while she prepared her famous green bean casserole. She worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before speaking. "So how did it really happen?" I looked up, trying to read her expression. "How did what happen?" "The engagement. I want the real story, not the sanitized version Oliver gave Mom and Dad." She smiled, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. "I know my brother Jake. 8 months ago, he was still hung up on that guy from his book club who turned out to be straight. So when did this actually start?" My mind raced, trying to decide how much truth to mix with the fiction. It kind of snuck up on us, honestly. We'd been friends for so long that neither of us really recognized when it shifted into something else. One day I just looked at him and realized I didn't want to imagine my life without him in it. The words came out more honestly than I'd intended, and Emma's expression softened. "That's sweet. And he feels the same way?" "You'd have to ask him," I said, deflecting. "But he's the one who proposed, so I'd say that's a pretty good indication." Emma laughed, nudging me with her elbow. "Fair point. And for what it's worth, I'm happy for you both. I haven't seen Oliver this relaxed in years. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Dinner was a magnificent affair. The dining table extended to its full length and covered with Patricia's best china. 23 people crowded around, passing dishes and sharing stories, the noise level rising and falling like a tide. I sat next to Oliver, our chairs close enough that our knees touched under the table, a constant point of contact that felt both thrilling and terrifying. When Richard stood to say grace, he added a special thanks for Oliver and me, for the love we'd found and the joy we were bringing to the family. Oliver's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight, and when I glanced at him, I saw something raw and real in his expression that had nothing to do with our charade. The rest of the meal passed in a warm blur. I caught myself watching Oliver more than I should have, noticing the way he threw his head back when he laughed, the gentle way he corrected Sophie's table manners, the affectionate glances he kept sending in my direction. Were those real, I wondered, or just part of the performance? After dinner, while the adults lingered over coffee and pie, Sophie dragged Oliver and me outside to play in the early evening light. We raked leaves into huge piles and let her jump into them, her laughter ringing across the lawn. When she finally tired herself out and went inside for a bath, Oliver and I remained outside, sitting on the porch swing as darkness gathered around us. "This is nice," Oliver said quietly, setting the swing in gentle motion. "I know it's all pretend, but being here with you, with my family, everything just feels right somehow." "It does," I agreed, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Oliver, can I ask you anything? Why haven't you actually dated anyone seriously? In the time I've known you, there have been a few casual things, but nothing that stuck. Is it really just bad timing, or is there something else?" Oliver was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the darkening horizon. "Honestly, I think I've been waiting for something that felt as easy as this, as comfortable and right as sitting here with you feels right now." The air between us suddenly felt charged, heavy with unspoken words. I turned to look at him, finding his eyes already on me, and the expression I saw there made my breath catch. This wasn't acting. This was real, raw vulnerability, and it terrified me as much as it thrilled me. "Oliver," I started, not sure what I was going to say, but the moment shattered as the front door opened and Patricia called us in for dessert. We went inside, but something had shifted between us. A door opening onto possibilities neither of us had anticipated when we started this charade. Friday morning, I woke to find a text from Oliver asking if I wanted to take a walk before the rest of the house stirred. I found him in the kitchen, 2 travel mugs of coffee already prepared, wearing a thick sweater that made him look impossibly soft and approachable. We walked into the woods behind the house, following a trail Oliver remembered from childhood. The morning was crisp and clear, our breath forming clouds in the cold air, frost still glittering on the remaining leaves. We didn't talk much at first, just walked side by side, close enough that our shoulders occasionally brushed. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," I finally ventured, "about waiting for something that feels right." Oliver stopped walking, turning to face me. We'd reached a small clearing where sunlight filtered through the bare branches, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. "I've been thinking about it too. Actually, I haven't been able to think about much else. This weekend," I said carefully, choosing my words like I was navigating a minefield. "Being here with you, pretending to be engaged, it's made me realize something. I don't think I'm pretending anymore, at least not about the important parts." Oliver's eyes widened, hope and fear warring in his expression. "What are you saying, Jake?" "I'm saying that somewhere between planning this fake engagement and watching you with your family, between holding your hand and wearing this ring, I fell for you. The real you, not the pretend version we created for your parents." I took a shaky breath, my heart thundering so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I'm saying I don't want this to be fake anymore." For a moment, Oliver just stared at me and panic began to creep in. Had I misread everything? Was I about to ruin our friendship and make the rest of the weekend unbearably awkward? But then he closed the distance between us, his hands coming up to frame my face with a gentleness that made my knees weak. "I asked you to do this because I couldn't imagine bringing anyone else," he said, his voice rough with emotion. But somewhere deep down, I think I knew. I knew that spending a weekend pretending to be in love with you would either cure me of these feelings I've been trying to ignore or make them impossible to deny. Turns out it was the latter. "You've had feelings for me?" I asked, struggling to process this revelation. "For months, maybe longer." I kept telling myself it was just friendship, that I was reading too much into the way my heart sped up when you texted or the way I looked forward to our movie nights more than anything else in my week. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "Asking you to fake an engagement was possibly the worst and best idea I've ever had." Why worst? Because I was terrified I'd give myself away, that you'd realize how I really felt, and it would make everything awkward between us. His thumb traced the line of my cheekbone, a touch so tender it made my chest ache. "I couldn't bear to lose you, Jake. Your friendship means everything to me." "You're not going to lose me," I promised. "But maybe we could try being something more than friends. Something real?" Oliver's answer was to kiss me, soft and sweet and perfect in the morning light. It felt like coming home, Like every romantic cliche I'd ever rolled my eyes at suddenly made perfect sense. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were grinning like idiots, giddy with the newness of it all. "So what do we do now?" I asked, reluctant to step out of the bubble we'd created in this quiet clearing. "Well, we're already engaged," Oliver pointed out, amusement dancing in his eyes. "We could just skip the awkward early dating phase and go straight to planning a wedding." I laughed, the sound echoing through the trees. "I think we should probably go on at least one official date before we start picking out china patterns. But I like where your head's at." We walked back to the house hand in hand, and this time there was no pretense, no performance. This was real, and the difference was palpable in every touch, every glance, every shared smile. When we stepped through the back door, Emma was in the kitchen making breakfast, and she took one look at us and grinned. "Finally," she said, not bothering to hide her satisfaction. "I was wondering how long it would take you two to figure it out." "Wait, you knew?" Oliver asked, genuinely surprised. "Oliver, I've known you your entire life. Did you really think I couldn't tell the difference between you pretending to have feelings and you actually having them?" She flipped a pancake with practiced ease. "Besides, I've seen the way Jake looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. That's not acting, big brother. That's the real deal." I felt my face heat, but I couldn't argue with her assessment. Oliver pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my temple that felt both casual and monumental, a promise of more moments like this to come. The rest of the weekend unfolded with a new kind of magic. We stopped second-guessing every touch, stopped calculating how we should act. Instead, we simply were. Together and honest and happier than I could remember being in a long time. We helped with the endless leftovers, played board games with the family, took Sophie to feed the horses at a nearby farm. Through it all, Oliver's hand found mine, our fingers interlacing with the easy comfort of something that was always meant to be. On Saturday evening, we gathered in the living room where a fire crackled in the fireplace. Patricia had made hot chocolate, and the family sprawled across couches and armchairs, full and content. Sophie had fallen asleep against Michael's shoulder, worn out from a day of playing in the cold. Richard cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Patricia and I wanted to say something while we're all together. Oliver, Jake, we're so happy to see you both so happy. Love like yours. The kind that's built on friendship and genuine respect. That's the kind that lasts. We're honored to welcome you to our family officially, Jake." I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed by the acceptance and warmth. Oliver's arm wrapped around my shoulders, and I leaned into him, feeling the solid reality of this moment, this family, this love that had grown from something false into something profoundly true. "Thank you," I managed, my voice thick with emotion. "You've all made me feel incredibly welcome. I'm grateful to be here." Later that night, Oliver and I stood at the window of my guest room, looking out at the stars scattered across the clear Vermont sky. We'd spent the last hour talking, really talking, about what we wanted this relationship to be, how we'd navigate the shift from friendship to something more, what came next. "Are we really doing this?" I asked, still half afraid I'd wake up and find it had all been a dream. "We really are," Oliver confirmed, turning me to face him. "And for the record, we're not telling my family this was ever fake. As far as they're concerned, we've been together for 8 months, and we're genuinely engaged." "Are we?" I asked, touching the ring that no longer felt like a prop. "Genuinely engaged, I mean?" Oliver considered this seriously. "I know this is all happening fast, and we should probably have an actual conversation about timelines and expectations. But Jake, I've never been more sure of anything than I am about you. So if you're asking whether I want to marry you someday, whether I can imagine a future where we build a life together, the answer is absolutely yes." "Good," I said, relief and joy flooding through me. "Because I want that too. Maybe not tomorrow, but someday. When we're ready." "When we're ready," Oliver agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted like hot chocolate and new beginnings. Sunday arrived too quickly, the weekend compressing into a collection of perfect moments I wanted to hold on to forever. We packed our bags slowly, reluctant to leave the warmth of the Hastings home and return to reality. But as we loaded the car, I realized we were taking the most important thing with us. This new understanding between us, fragile and precious and real. Patricia hugged us both fiercely, making us promise to visit again soon for Christmas. Richard shook my hand and then pulled me into a brief, warm embrace. Emma whispered in my ear, "Take care of him and let him take care of you. That's the secret." Sophie made us both promise to bring her presents when we got married, a request we solemnly agreed to. The drive back to the city felt different than the drive up. We talked about everything and nothing, making plans for our first official date, discussing how to tell our friends that we were together now. Oliver held my hand when he wasn't shifting gears, the simple contact anchoring us both. "Do you think this would have happened if I hadn't asked you to fake the engagement?" Oliver asked as we hit city traffic, the familiar skyline coming into view. I thought about it carefully. Maybe eventually. But I'm glad it happened the way it did. Sometimes you need a little push to see what's been right in front of you all along. "Worst fake engagement ever," Oliver said with a grin. "Best real one." "Though," I countered, and he laughed, the sound filling the car with warmth and possibility. We pulled up outside my apartment as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Oliver turned off the engine but made no move to get out, his hand still holding mine. "I know we said we'd take things slow," he began, "but would it be too much if I asked to come up? Not to stay the night, just to keep being with you a little longer. I'm not ready for this weekend to end yet," I said softly. "I'd like that a lot." So we climbed the stairs to my apartment, carrying bags and leftover pie, the ring still on my finger catching the hallway light. Inside, we settled on my couch, the same spot where we'd practiced being a couple, but everything was different now. Real. True. Ours. "What are you thinking?" Oliver asked, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder. "I'm thinking about how strange life is. How one coffee shop conversation, one ridiculous favor, one fake engagement can change everything." I turned to look at him. This person who'd been my best friend and was now becoming something so much more. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am that you asked me, even if it was crazy." "It was definitely crazy," Oliver agreed. "But it was also the best decision I ever made. Well, second best. The best was deciding to stop pretending and make it real. We did that together," I reminded him. "We did," he said, kissing me softly. "And we'll keep doing everything together from now on. No more pretending, no more hiding. Just us, figuring it out as we go." Looking at Oliver in the gathering darkness of my apartment, I could see our future stretching out ahead of us, bright with promise and potential. We'd have challenges, certainly. Every relationship did. But we'd also have each other. This foundation of friendship and trust and genuine affection that we'd built over 2 years and solidified over one extraordinary weekend. The ring on my finger caught the lamplight, and I smiled, thinking about how it had started as a prop in an elaborate fiction and become a symbol of something perfectly real. We'd faked an engagement for his family, but somewhere between the first lie and the last truth, we'd made it genuine. We'd found something neither of us had been looking for, but both of us desperately needed. "I love you," I said, the words feeling both brand new and like something I'd been waiting my whole life to say to exactly the right person. Oliver's smile could have lit the entire city. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to admit it." "Well," I said, settling more comfortably against him, "you don't have to be scared anymore. We're in this together now. For real this time." "For real," Oliver echoed. And in that moment, surrounded by the comfortable familiarity of my apartment and the exciting newness of this relationship, I knew with absolute certainty that we were exactly where we were meant to, be the fake engagement that had started as a favor to help my best friend. Avoid his family's matchmaking had become the catalyst for the most real thing in my life. And as Oliver and I sat together planning our first official date, laughing and dreaming,